In this tutorial, I want to talk about anonymous functions in PHP, which are also known as closures. And these have been available in PHP since 5.3, and PHP has no doubt been influenced by JavaScript in this regard, where the use of anonymous functions has been very successful. So the way that I want to show this is just by using some examples. I think it will be the clearest that way. So basically what we're doing here is we're starting off with this result variable and we're setting that to 0. And after that we're doing 3 tests. The first one I have commented out because actually it doesn't even parse. I'm just going to uncomment here so you can see what happens there. And we see we have undefined variable. So I'm just going to put those comment marks just back here. And of course the reason it's an undefined variable in the first one is we have this variable 1 and we're setting that to a function definition. And inside the function definition we are var dumping result. But result has been defined in the parent scope, but inside this function's local scope result does not exist. And it this function's local scope, it doesn't have access to the parent scope because we didn't bring that variable into the function. So in our next example, we are going to bring that variable into the function scope, and you'll see that here we have 2, and that's set to function use result. And you'll notice this result here, it doesn't have an ampersand here. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that results variable here into this function scope, and then we are var dumping that, and you'll see that we get this int 0 here when we var dump it. So the type is integer and the value is 0. In the next example, 3 set to a function and it's using result, but we have an ampersand in front of it. So rather than copying results value into this function scope, this function is going to hold a reference to the parent scope. So if this result changes, then its value inside this function is also going to change. Finally, after all 3 of these, we have result plus plus. We are going to increment results value right there. So 1 we have commented out. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. And then, so when we invoke this 2 variable right here, so the variable 2 has been set to a function, so we can invoke it with these parentheses next to it. And we'll see that it outputs int 0 right here, and that's because result was copied. So even though we have result plus plus here, the value of result inside the 2 function didn't change because we copied that into there, and then result value will always be 0, which was copied into it, no matter if we do result plus plus or we do anything else after that. Whereas the 3 variable right here, this function is holding a reference to that result variable in the parent scope. So when we change that result variable with result plus plus here, it is going to grab that, it's holding a reference to this variable. So this changes, so its value within the function is also going to change. And we see that when we invoke 3 here, it's going to output 1. So I think this is a really good example showing the difference of using this use keyword and bringing variables into our function. But in one case we copied the value in there, and that is going to be stored in there, and it's not going to change no matter what. Whereas the second one is going to hold a reference to the result variable in the parent scope. In the next example, which is really similar, we're just going to look at something that could be a little bit more practical. And what we're doing here is my instance is set to null. We're giving it a default value. And this variable broken is set to a function, and it's using my instance. You can see we're copying into it because there's no ampersand in front. And if this my instance, if it's not empty, then we are going to call this method of the my instance instantiation. We are going to use this object, and we are going to call the do something method of it. Or else, if it is empty, then we're just going to say my instance is null here. In the second example here, working is almost the same as above, except we're making a reference to my instance up here. And then if it's not empty, same thing, we're going to call this do something method of my instance. So the only difference between this working variable and this broken one here is that one has copied my instance is null inside its scope, and the other one is holding a reference to this my instance variable in the parent scope. The next thing we're doing is just creating a couple classes just so that this example will work. And my class, we define that class right here, and then we're going to put one method inside the class which is called do something, and when this is called it echoes out I'm doing something. And then we have another class called some business logic, and it has a static method inside of it worked, and all this does is return true. So moving down here, we are going to call this work static method right here. So if some business logic in this static method, if this evaluates to true, then my instance is going to be set to new class. So we're going to instantiate this my class right here, and we're going to store it in the my instance variable. So up here, this my instance null is now going to get overwritten, and it's going to become an object of the my class. The last thing we're going to do, just to show this example, we are going to invoke broken, and here we see that my instance will always be null inside this closure, and we get this output on the right which says my instance is null, what do you want from me? But in the second case, when we invoke working, we are actually going to call that method. We are going to call the do something method here, and you can see here I'm doing something. And the reason why it was called there is because after we did this, we updated my instance variable. It wasn't null anymore. It became an object, and then because this second one here, this working, because that held a reference to that my instance variable, and that became an object, then we were able to run this do something method right here.